So we're excited. We're excited to have you here today so you can learn more information not only about what you can do for and take action in youth vaping prevention, but also to see what's being done and the easy way of doing it, give you some background in e-cigarettes and what's happening to e-cigarettes, why are they a concern, how did we get here, how did this epidemic, not pandemic, but epidemic in regards to e-cigarettes happen so quickly, and then just go over some of the Catch My Breath program components and logistics. And really hope you can come to part 2 tomorrow, because we do have a couple fantastic youth that will be joining us. So if you have not registered with Michelle to come on tomorrow, you really won't want to miss that one. So just remember, today I'm just going to talk a little bit about e-cigarettes. So let's start about, what are they? So what is an e-cigarette? So first let's define an e-cigarette, which are a battery-powered device that heats and disperses liquid, so it can be inhaled into the lungs. So we often compare e-cigarettes to iPhones or computers. So whether it's an iPhone, an Android, a Mac, or a PC, they all essentially do the same thing and have the same parts, they just all look different. As you can see here on the screen, this is a picture of the insides of an e-cigarette, and they all contain a battery, a microprocessor, atomizer, and a cartridge or tank. There are many different variations, as we're going to learn, of the product, but the product all uses the same information. So the microprocessor senses a change in pressure when the user inhales on the end of the e-cigarette. Then the microprocessor instructs the atomizer to activate the heater and vaporize the liquid. So this is which the smoker inhales through the mouthpiece. Then the vapor is drawn into the body the same exact way as a regular cigarette is. And we all know that we talk about vaping, but we're going to learn that it's really not vapor that's in there. Vapor, we think of water. Vapor is a substance diffused or suspended in the air. So if you think about steam that comes from when you're boiling for a pot of hot water for tea, or I like to say when you're doing a pot of spaghetti and you see the steam that rises. And we're going to learn that what is produced is not just a vapor, because one, there's no vapor water in e-cigarettes. And if you think about how small this is and take a look at the heater and how small that little coil is and how small the battery is, it would not heat up the water hot enough to come to create a vapor effect. So we're going to learn that there has to be other chemicals within that. So if you think about boiling that pot of spaghetti, if you want it to boil quicker, you add oil and salt. Same thing here with e-cigarettes. It's not water. We're going to learn that it's a bunch of chemicals. And it's also called, since it's not a vapor, does not contain water, it's actually aerosolized vapor that consists of liquid particles and gaseous chemicals. So we know that aerosol is a substance enclosed under pressure and able to release as a fine spray. So if you think about aerosol, I sprayed my hair this morning with hairspray, that's an aerosol, and all those chemicals that fall down with it. Same thing happens with e-cigarettes. Like I said, we know that most people think of vaping to deal with water vapor, but that's not what's being inhaled. So we like to really use this fun definition for vaping instead. Inhaling the aerosolized chemicals created through the heating of e-liquid in an e-cigarette. Now that sounds just a little less innocent, doesn't it? So let's take a look at the evolution of e-cigarettes. They do come in several different forms, whether it's disposable, rechargeables, tanks, and refillable. This chart just shows a brief history. So the first generation on the left was actually made to mimic and look like a real cigarette. Those are the first generation disposables. You use it till the liquid runs out and then you throw it out. Then we have the second generation of vape pens. These are larger pen-shaped looking devices and they can be recharged. We move on to third generation, which are the tanks, or I just call them the large, obnoxious big ones. These are rechargeable with a rechargeable battery. They're large and they have a refillable cartridge. These are also called mods because you can often break them open and modify some of the parts. And if you've seen some of those national vaping competitions, these are usually devices that are used for that because it creates a huge vape cloud. The fourth generation of e-cigarettes, this is where the high-tech, sleek design and easily rechargeable batteries. The most popular in this brand was the Juul, which came out in 2017. Juul uses small disposable pods that contain the e-liquid and is then inserted into the larger Juul device. So a Juul device could easily be confused for a USB drive, and they can often be charged in laptops or computers or even those new larger TVs that have the USB port, and portable USB drives as well, because it is a USB drive. Juul products became so popular that they spawned their own language and their own terminology. So students who use a Juul might not consider themselves as vaping or using an e-cigarette, but calling themselves as Juuling. And just remember that Juuling is only the slang verb that is only associated with Juul. In fact, in some schools, students refer to their bathrooms as Juul lounges or Juul spas. There's often now other copycat products on the market, including Soren Drop, My Blue, and the Smoke Nords kit that follow Juul's high-tech design and high nicotine delivery through nicotine salt e-liquid variations. And then lastly, we have the 5th generation. So since the flavor ban, which we're going to discuss in a little bit, the new sleek design of disposable e-cigarettes are on the rise in popularity, and they come in many different flavors and often have a high nicotine concentration. Currently, these types of e-cigarettes are not part of the flavor ban. According to the 2020 National Youth Tobacco Survey, the pre-filled pods, which are the ones for the Juul, were the most commonly used e-cigarette device among high school students by over 48%, and also including middle school students by over 41%. Then followed the second largest for high school was those disposables, so those ones with all the different flavors that we talked about, with over 26%. And then third was tanks, which they dropped in percentage quite a bit. But then for middle school, it's interesting. They went from pre-filled pods to the tanks, and then down to the disposables. So this is very interesting as we learn about the flavor ban and the restrictions on the flavor ban and why that's important to really get a hold of that. So there are more than 8,000 different flavors of e-juice. E-juice is just the slang term that's used for the liquid in an e-cigarette. And it often does contain nicotine and flavoring chemicals. The use of flavors to mask the harshness of tobacco is a seductive and deceptive marketing tactic that has been used by the tobacco industry for decades, including products like menthol cigarettes and fruit-flavored cigars. But e-cigarettes vapor lacks the harsh burn of traditional cigarettes or cigars, so that makes that first puff a little bit more friendlier on the palate and easier for kids to take up the habit. According to the Journal of the American Medical Association, 81% of kids who ever used tobacco products started with a flavored product. This continues on the 2020 National Youth Tobacco Survey. Among all current e-cigarette users, almost 83% used flavored e-cigarettes. That's over 84% of high school students and over 73% in middle school users, which is a large amount. In total, it's over almost 69% of current e-cigarette users reported using a flavored product. Some of the popular products within middle and high school both rated fruit as their #1 choice. And then high school went to mint or menthol, and then candy, desserts, or other sweets. Well, and this seems typical, in middle school it was fruit, then candy or desserts and other sweets, and then mint and menthol. Just to take a note, if you look at that second row of packaging, so the FDA does prohibit e-cigarette packaging that intentionally mimics food products. So if you take a look at the first 2 pictures on the bottom, that first one, that is actually an e-juice container, but it's made to mimic the actual food product, which is a popular apple juice brand of juice box for kids. And if you take a look at the slushie, the same thing with that one as well. It's the packaging that has banned. That's not actually a slushie in there. That is actually an e-liquid container. And just to take note too, nicotine, which is toxic and colorless and yellowish or oily liquid, and it's a chief active component in tobacco. It acts as a stimulant in small doses, but in larger amounts, it blocks the action of nerve and muscle cells. Nicotine is also used in insecticides. And this is one of the chief components of e-cigarettes. So we really need to take caution when handling these vaping devices, because it can be absorbed through the skin. So if you pick up an old vaping device that's laying on the ground and you pick it up, be careful, because it could leak and be absorbed through the skin. Also, beyond nicotine, any substance that can be transformed into a liquid can be used in an e-cigarette. So this is where we talk about marijuana and THC and other things. So in January of 2020, the president banned all flavored pre-filled pods, except menthol and tobacco flavors. The FDA also finalized an enforcement policy to punish any retailers caught selling unauthorized flavors of cartridge-based e-cigarettes. So we're going to learn, while this is a positive step forward, it only includes those pre-filled pods like Juul. A lot of the flavors we just talked about are still available, including those that are in the disposable e-cigarettes. So it doesn't cover the Puff Bar. If you take a look at those two pictures in the middle, or Stig that's pictured on the right, it does not cover those brands. In July of 2020, the FDA did notify several companies, including Puff Bar, to remove flavored disposable e-cigarettes and youth-appealing e-liquids from the market for not having required authorization. So it was interesting that the Puff Bar did announce banning the sale of Puff Bar within the US, but they already had, if you take a look at that picture that has the black background, that's Puff Flow. They already had Puff Flow on the market. So when I went to their website, you can find Puff Bar has been banned in the continental United States, but they already had Puff Flow on the market that came in many different flavors as well, which is typical of the tobacco industry. They say that they're positively going to stop doing something, but they already have something else on the market that's being sold. So if you've been in tobacco prevention and control for a while, you may remember Camel Crush. It's the cigarette that it's a traditional flavored cigarette, and if you want a menthol flavor, it has a little bead within the filter. You just squeeze that, and when you inhale, you get the menthol flavoring. Well, Puff Crush has now been developed. It contains 0 nicotine, 0 tobacco, but it's in exotic flavors. So it was made, and they have this in their advertisement, that the pre-filled pods were designed to be an add-on for the Juul pod. So you simply insert 1 Puff Crush pod on top of your Juul pod and start puffing away. It's as easy as that. So if you have a classic tobacco pod and you want to add some mango flavor to it, you just put one of these Puff Crush on there, and there you go. You have a flavored product. Also in December 2019, President Trump signed into legislation to raise the minimum age of sale of tobacco products from 18 to 21, and this is nationwide. This means that anyone who hadn't turned 21 by December 31st of 2019 was unable to purchase any tobacco product. This includes cigarettes, cigars, e-cigarettes, spit tobacco, until they're 21. And this plays an important role in cutting off youth access to tobacco products through older friends, as the age gap now extends well beyond the high school age. So you're not going to have that 18-year-old in school buying that product for those younger children. So in addition to playing a role in cutting off access, the age restriction can help prevent addiction from happening at an early age. So we're all born with a potential for addiction, and it can manifest in different ways, whether it's alcohol, nicotine, social media, exercise, caffeine, chocolate, video games, which is really high and popular right now. But e-cigarettes, what's the danger is the nicotine. Nicotine in adolescence can harm the parts of the brain that control attention, learning, mood, and impulse control. So to understand how this works, we're just going to go over this real quick over a little biology. So each time a new memory is created or a new skill is learned, stronger connections or synapses are built between brain cells. Young people's brains, as we know, build synapses faster than adults, but nicotine changes the way these synapses are formed, which interferes with the brain's sensitive pleasure and rewards feedback loop. Because of this, nicotine in adolescence is called a gateway drug and can increase risk for future addiction to other drugs. It is really important to note that, Juul came on the market and was the leader in the vaping market with high nicotine concentration of 5% in one pod. They now offer 3 and 5% in one pod. Other e-cigarette brands are now following suit, including Puff Bar, that still comes in many different flavors. And at this time is not currently part of the flavor ban. So what does all that mean? Well, the amount of nicotine in a single Juul pod and some disposable e-cigarettes, one is as much as an entire pack of traditional cigarettes, as much nicotine as an entire pack of traditional cigarettes, and including the same number of puffs. So if you have a young adult who's using 1 pod a day or 2 pods a day, that's a 2-pack a day smoker, how much nicotine that they're getting. And we know that since the human brain continues to develop until the age of 25, we need to now prevent youth from experiencing with vaping and other nicotine products, because the older they get after the age of 25, the less likely they are able to pick up a nicotine or cigarette product. The National Institute on Drug Abuse, which is NIDA, surveys students every year on various risk factors, and this includes tobacco and e-cigarettes. So this was part of the 2019 Monitoring the Future survey. And we highlight this to show you the top 3 reasons why teens vape. The number 1 is to experiment. They really just want to see what it's like. Number 2, it tastes good. I wonder if that has to do with all the 8,000 different flavors that we have. And then tied with number 3 is to have a good time with my friends and to relax and relieve tension. Not surprising with relax and relieve tension, you often hear of someone who's a traditional cigarette smoker that they, oh, I need to go have a break, so I need to relax, or I need to cool off. The same thing's found with e-cigarettes, but that's because of the nicotine is making them feel that way. Actually, they just need to go out and do some yoga and do some healthier behaviors, do some deep breathing exercises, and they would feel better. But it is important to note that one of the teens that noted to relax to relieve tension increased by more than 1/3 compared to 2018. So it went up 1/3 between 2018 and 2019. So besides nicotine that we talked about already, the vapor produced and inhaled when using an e-cigarette contains a lot of other harmful ingredients and is not harmless. So e-juice may contain other cancer-causing chemicals, heavy metals such as nickel, tin, and lead. Other chemicals such as formaldehyde is actually formed in the body after the e-liquid is inhaled. The nicotine content and concentration may vary, but we already know that it's not mandated that they label what's on the e-cigarette container, so we don't actually know what is in it. It's mandated that they report it to FDA, but it's not put on the packaging. So while e-cigarette vapor generally contains fewer harmful chemicals than smoke burned from tobacco, it's important to keep in mind the difference between less harm and harmless. So jumping out of a 3rd-story window will cause less harm than jumping out of the 10th floor, but neither one of those is harmless. It's also important to remember before the COVID-19 pandemic, there was great alarm and concern over vaping-associated lung illness. In April of 2019, the FDA issued an announcement regarding e-cigarettes, seizures, and lung disease. They stated they had reports indicating that some people who use e-cigarettes, especially youth and young adults, are experiencing seizures following their use. Since then, CDC had announced that it appeared that vitamin E acetate is associated with lung injury associated with the use of e-cigarettes. But there are many different substances and product sources that are still being investigated because there may be more than one root cause. There were over 2,800 cases reported in all 50 states between April of 2019 and February 2020, and 68 deaths in 29 states, including DC. We don't have any current information since February 2020 due to the outbreak of the coronavirus. Everybody's working on that. But of course, CDC still advises e-cigarette vaping products should never be used by youth, young adults, or women who are pregnant. Adults who do not currently use any type of tobacco product should not start using e-cigarettes or any tobacco product because there is no safe tobacco product. And all tobacco products, including e-cigarettes, carry a risk. So whether this whole correlation, ends up being proven, it begs the couple questions. What other risks might there be in regards to vaping? And can this happen again? It happened before. Can it happen again? There's very little we know about the long-term effects of e-cigarette use. And since homemade cartridges are a small business, yes, this definitely could happen again. And this generation of kids have become the guinea pigs, unfortunately. A lung injury associated with the use of e-cigarettes or vaping presents like pneumonia or COVID. So it's important that if you or anyone you know experiences these symptoms for a prolonged period of time, just more than a few days, that a physician is consulted and any e-cigarette use, no matter what the product that was in it, whether it's nicotine or THC related, is disclosed. Additionally, an August 2020 study from Stanford University found that those who vape are 5 times as likely to contract COVID-19 as those who do not. And then to add to this, to make this more difficult, if you vape and smoke because you're a dual user, you're vaping in one venue, but you're smoking cigarettes, say when you're out at someplace else, you are 7 times as likely to contract COVID-19. So we have the data behind it now. And to learn more about this, we actually created at Catch My Breath, Vaping, Lung Health, and Infectious Disease portion of our program that is free to all of you when you register for our program. So what are some signs that a teen may be smoking? So we've learned that when someone uses a nicotine product, the nicotine is absorbed into their system, and often mood and pleasure centers are aroused. The tolerance and physical dependence for substance increases as use continues. And we know, as we've seen with those traditional cigarette smokers, if someone goes without nicotine, it can produce withdrawal symptoms such as craving for more nicotine. And it's just this vicious cycle that continues to repeat. So a child could have some behavioral changes. So if you normally have a very calm child, they're a very easygoing child, all of a sudden they're irritable, anxiety, they have lots of mood changes. Is it just the teenage years, or could your child be vaping? Difficulty concentrating. This can happen whether it's in a virtual setting or in-school setting. They may be wondering, when can I get my next hit off my e-cigarette, not really paying attention to what the math teacher's talking about because they need that nicotine fix. Often change in eating patterns. So it leads to weight fluctuation, whether it's weight gain or weight loss. Some have reported mouth sores and dry mouth from the vaping, and the heat of the vapor that's being, and the chemicals that's being inhaled. Unexplained nosebleeds. We've had reports that students all of a sudden have an interest in burning scented candles or incense in their rooms at home, and this could be to hide the many different flavors that they are using for their e-cigarette. I had an 8th grade teacher tell me that she was very excited because she thought her students were actually concerned about personal hygiene. And she smelled perfume and cologne. And unfortunately, it was actually a group of students that were using their e-cigarette, and they were trying to hide the smell of their e-liquid. So how do you talk to your students or to your children about vaping? Before you start the conversation, it's important to know the facts, and you've already done that by attending this presentation today and tomorrow and learning more information about e-cigarettes and vaping. When you do start the conversation, we suggest, as well as the Surgeon General's report suggests, do not start with, we need to talk. I know I don't like to hear we need to talk. I always think, I don't want to hear from anybody, whether it's my boss, my husband, my sister. So I'm always thinking, what did I do now? That never starts with a good sign when someone's saying we need to talk. Automatically could put up the defense of your child. So instead, bring up a vaping incident that's recently happened. Vaping is still in the news. It was just a year ago that was the first 17-year-old who died of vaping-related complications. If you bring up something that's been in the news, it's a safe way to start the conversation with actually accusing the child of vaping. Ask for support from either your healthcare provider, other trusted adults, school counselors, school nurses. Answer their questions, and if you don't know an answer, that's okay. Just tell them that's a great question and let me find out. You can always contact us, and we're more than willing to help you find out that answer for you. And just remember, this is not a one-done conversation. Your students, unfortunately, are going to be offered e-cigarettes several times over their school career. And they may be able to say no if they're offered an e-cigarette in the girls' bathroom. But what if they're at their best friend's house and they have an older brother that they really like and they want him to like her? He offers them an e-cigarette. How is she going to be able to refuse that? I'm very excited that we'll be able to tell you that the Catch My Breath program does address those exit strategies and refusal skills and gives youth the opportunity to practice those. And then finally, there are some cessation resources that we have provided on the screen as well. So how did we get here? How did we get out of control so quickly? So this data information is from the National Youth Tobacco Survey that's administered from CDC every year. About 20,000 students, grades 6 through 12. This year, the survey was delivered between January and March of 2020, so it was before the national shutdown with the COVID pandemic. So we do have information. What we do have, the preliminary information, is we did see from 2017 to 2019, that 3-year, we saw a huge increase in e-cigarette use, 135% among high school and 218 among middle school. Now we've shifted this just a little bit. You can see the e-cigarette rates have gone down to 19% in high school and 4.7% in middle school. That is still a lot of students. That equivalents to 3 million students, or 1 in 5 high school students and 1 in 20 middle school students are reported current e-cigarette users. We can do better than this. It is still very much unacceptable. Among current e-cigarette users, almost 39% of high school students and 20% middle school students reported using e-cigarettes on 20 or more of the past 30 days. And And even more shocking is that over 22% of high school users and almost 10% of middle school users reported using on a daily basis. So that just shows where the nicotine addiction is. So besides our limited, flavor bans and age restrictions, students are still trying to find a way to get their nicotine fix. So with the flavor ban only covering pre-filled pods or cartridges, what you see on the screen is not a typo. While flavored disposable e-cigarettes are still widely available, the 2020 National Youth Tobacco Survey is very scary amounts, where it shows that there's 1,000% increase in disposable e-cigarettes from high school students. So it's in 1 year, from 2019 to 2020, 1,000% increase in high school students and a 400% increase in middle school students. While pre-filled pods and cartridges were still the most commonly used device in 2020, this disposable e-cigarette increase is really scary and really lets us know that we need to ban the flavors of all e-cigarettes. Also, the report shows that among current users, more than 8 in 10 reported using flavored e-cigarettes. More reason why we need to ban the sale of all flavored e-cigarettes. Also, this other statistic that really scares some people in the public health community. So despite an overall decrease in youth using traditional cigarettes, the data from the National Youth Tobacco Survey, now, not to confuse you, we're going to show you data from the 2019 survey, because we didn't get this evidence yet on the 2020 report because only some of the information has been reported. But a study by the University of Pittsburgh found that 47.7% of those who used e-cigarettes at baseline began smoking cigarettes within 18 months, compared to just 10% of non-e-cigarette users. And scientific models show that e-cigarette use made it 6.8 times more likely that an individual would begin smoking traditional cigarettes within 18 months. So the alarming rates at which these youth are starting to use e-cigarettes and vape is starting to undermine the progress that has been made towards reducing overall tobacco use. The 2019 data showed that among youth who currently use tobacco, about 1 in 3 reported using 2 or more tobacco products in the past 30 days. So while e-cigarettes may turn out to be an off-ramp for some older longtime smokers, they're already a huge on-ramp for new smokers. If we remember, Big Tobacco used the term replacement smokers in the 80s to refer to the young people that need to draw into tobacco use in order to replace their dying customers. I think the e-cigarettes company has taken over for that. That it's pretty clear that the new replacement smoker for Big Tobacco is today's young vaping teens. So part of the increase, this is a chart from the National Institute of Health that still shows teens don't know what's in their e-cigarettes. Youth don't know what's in e-cigarettes. 13% don't know. 66 think it's just flavoring. Well, we already learned that it's not just flavoring. There's several different chemicals in e-cigarette vapor, and often more than not, there is nicotine. Even those that say no nicotine have been tested to find traces of nicotine. According to the CDC, 99% of e-cigarettes sold in 2015 did contain nicotine. Manufacturers don't have to put that on the label of the packaging, so we don't know what's actually in them. And it also, this lack of knowledge about e-cigarettes makes youth more susceptible to the mistruths they may encounter online or hear from their peers. So we're going to talk later about how Catch My Breath arms young people with the facts about vaping so they can spot the mistruths or flat out lies when they see them. So another major contributor, and again, we didn't get the full report for the 2020 National Youth Tobacco Survey, so this is reflected in 2019, that 7 in 10 kids are regularly exposed to e-cigarette advertisements. And you can see the breakdown on the chart. Over 58% in retail, 44% internet, 26% on TV, or streaming services or movies, and then over 34% still in newspapers and magazines. So it's really important that we teach our kids to recognize e-cigarette ads, which can be stealthy and subtle in social media, so they can understand when they're being sold something. So think about your own social media use or your children's use. We can control who we follow and who follows us, but we can't control the advertising that pops up. And there's so much advertising that pops up now. My son watches YouTube videos all the time. We approve who he watches, but we don't approve the ads that keep popping up. And there seems to be more and more ads within these videos. We also need to think about the influencers and celebrities that might use these products and post about them. And not even the celebrities, but also just those common people that are on TikTok that youth can relate to. Oh, that looks like me. I would want to do something like that. And they're posting about those e-cigarettes, which could encourage them to use. So our Catch My Breath program helps students dissect advertisements, looking at both direct and indirect to understand when they're actually being sold something. So look at the surge of Juul from 2017 to 2018. Researchers actually found that in the early marketing campaigns of Juul, that they clearly targeted young adults, crafting their brand and advertising around strategies that were appealing to teenagers. Dr. Robert Jackler, a tobacco advertising expert, stated that Juul ads are filled with attractive young models socializing and flirtatiously sharing the flash drive shaped device, displaying behavior like dancing to club-like music and clothing styles, more characteristics of teens than mature adults. One major difference that set Juul apart from other companies in the beginning was their strong social media presence, using hashtags and peer-to-peer promotion through activities like Juul challenges, which were stunts or activities devised by social media influencers that encouraged people to take and post pictures or videos of themselves doing various things for their Juul devices. So this was actually seen, I had a principal of a middle school tell me that so someone ratted out one of their friends that it was do it for Juul. So if you can take a picture of yourself doing a Juul with a teacher behind you and not get caught, post it on social media, you got social media credit. So this was something that was actually happening with our students. These are usually meticulously coordinated and strategic marketing campaigns that are mockingly referred to as AstroTurf because they're being fake grassroots campaigns. It's not really happening. It's just happening to get on social media. So with this, it's no wonder that Juul went from 24% of the overall e-cigarette market share in August of 2017 to over 75% in October 2018. They're not the leaders now because disposable has come, but they still maintain between 30 and 40% of the market share. And just to quickly look at some of the marketing that the e-cigarette companies have done as well, they really mimic the tobacco industry's marketing tactics. You can remember You've Come a Long Way, Baby, utilizing sexuality and glamorous women, using sports cars and NASCAR, any venue where youth may be there and present, hosting music festivals, and anywhere they can reach young people. Before being banned, Marlboro was a big sponsor of Indian NASCAR, but now e-cigarette companies are taking that over. In fact, in 2018, tobacco companies spent over $9 billion on advertising and promotional expenses in the United States alone. So it's no wonder where they are with their marketing. And for years, our tobacco industry has marketed their products in retail stores and gas stations. We've worked hard in local tobacco prevention and control efforts to pass local laws that tobacco advertisements had to be placed at certain height to reduce exposure to advertising to youth. And also product placement laws have been passed, including tobacco products to be behind the counter, not for individual sale, and not placed next to youth appealing sales like candy and ice cream. But now the e-cigarette company has taken over. If you see that picture for Enjoy, the advertisement, well, that would be down by my kneecap. So that's definitely not advertising to me, but advertising to the young youth population. The same thing with Juul next to the Dipping Dots, the ice cream. And so social media, here we are. Other brands market these products on social media just like Juul has. And some of these are really disgusting. So if you take a look at the one, it's called Spot the Vape. So is that really just all makeup? Oh no, that's not an eyeliner. That black stick in the middle, that's actually an e-cigarette. So it just shows how easy the device is to conceal. And then if you take the next one, this is really one of the most disturbing marketing tactics that I've seen in a long time, is exploding the COVID-19 pandemic. So some e-cigarette companies are actually offering free masks with a purchase. And you can see in that picture, he's not only got a mask on, there's mask in the picture, toilet paper, hand sanitizer, all the things that go along with it. And in fact, Bitty Vapor claimed on Instagram that a bitty stick a day keeps the pulmonologist away. Just another marketing tactic from the vaping industry. So to make Juul and other vaping devices more fashionable, a lot of companies have created different things. So like cases for their iPhones, trendy hand-knitted vape sweaters, they're called. And then Juul wraps and skins, which are pictured on where you see the Marvel comics. These items do not contain nicotine. It's just an accessory, so they are readily available for purchase, whether it's on Amazon or Etsy. But one of the most shocking probably is the emergence of clothing, specially designed to conceal vaping devices. So the clothing contains stealth pockets, providing a discrete location for tobacco product pod systems that deliver vapor discreetly through hose woven through the hoodies and in backpacks. Therefore, can be used for vaping without raising attention of parents, teachers, or other adults. And obviously that girl looks really, really young in the picture. In April, I think it was April or July of this year, FDA wrote a letter to Vaporware, which is who has that clothing line, stating that they are concerned about the rising youth appeal and dramatic rise in youth use of ENDS products, and any efforts to entice minors to use tobacco products are a concern of FDA. So sales of such products to minors are prohibited, and FDA is concerned with their actions, likely encouraging unlawful sales. So they did write a letter. They sent warning letters to Vaporware and several other online and brick and mortar stores to remove these certain products. I haven't been able to find an update, but I know a letter was written to them. I have gone to the Vaporware website, and it is shut down at this time. You cannot buy the clothing, but it was something that may be in the closet of your student, because I actually have one for when I go and present. So in addition to some of this other stuff, is that really a Sharpie you see on the screen? And if you're not paying attention now, take a look at it, because that's actually not a Sharpie. It's a Sharpie outside of it, but the inside, the marker's been taken away and a Juul has been inserted. I took this picture. It was, I was at a conference, and one of the teachers had actually confiscated it from a student. So this was something that was done on the schools. So now let's take a look at the Catch My Breath program. So Catch My Breath is a nicotine vaping prevention program that has been proven effective at reducing the likelihood that students will experiment with vaping. The theoretical background for the program is social cognitive theory, which views health behaviors as products of personal, social, and environmental factors. So in addition to building knowledge, Catch My Breath disrupts normative beliefs such as the notion that everybody's doing it. Students develop skills to help them resist peer pressure and see through advertising and misinformation that perpetuates both online and in social media. And as a whole, the program creates favorable attitudes and beliefs about not using e-cigarettes. So the question isn't what will my students do if they're exposed to e-cigarettes, it's what will my students do when they're exposed to e-cigarettes. And Catch My Breath gives students a wide range of skills and tools to help them respond to a number of real-world scenarios. Our program was designed by Dr. Stephen Kelder from the University of Texas Health Science Center at Houston School of Public Health. He was actually a senior scientific editor on the Surgeon General's report that came out in 2016, and has over 25 years of experience developing and researching child health programs. It was because of his research on the Surgeon General's report that he had done. He did not find an e-cigarette prevention program, and thus the Catch My Breath program was developed in 2016, where we piloted our program. In January of this year, Catch My Breath became the first nicotine vaping prevention program to demonstrate effectiveness in a peer-reviewed study, making it the first and is currently the only evidence-based youth vaping prevention program. The study was published in the Public Health Reports, which is the official journal of the U.S. Surgeon General. So since we began our broader dissemination efforts with support from CVS Health, the program is free and has been adopted by schools in all 50 states, and we have already reached more than 1 million students, thanks to our diverse community of support and partners that include private foundations, local departments of health, state education agencies, and school districts. And currently we're in over more than 2,500 schools across the country. So based on the findings from the peer-reviewed research paper that I had just mentioned in the Public Health Reports, we just want to give you a snapshot of what this program could do for schools across the country. The average 7th grade class size in U.S. public schools is approximately 192 students. If nothing is done, we project 17 of those 7th grade students will try an e-cigarette by the end of the school year. That's almost the whole class size. If a school implements Catch My Breath, 8 of those 17 students, 45%, will not try an e-cigarette this year. And if every public school in the country implemented Catch My Breath, That's almost 154,000 fewer 7th grade students would try e-cigarettes alone this year. We've been in the news several times for Catch My Breath since June of 2018. And we tell you this not just to boast about what our program is, but to let you know that the youth vaping epidemic, it's a national conversation. I know some schools and districts can feel like it's an isolating experience, but this is happening in every school across the country. We know that it's really important to align academic standards to fit the Catch My Breath program, so this way teachers can fit this into their class schedule. We know that sometimes the teachers have so many things to do on their plate, and if it doesn't fit something they're already supposed to do, they're less likely to do it. That's why our program was developed on national health education standards, Common Core standards, and we've also, as of the summer of last year, incorporated CASEL, which as well, CASEL standards, which is for social emotional learning, which is SEL, which is how children and adults learn to understand and manage emotions, set goals, show empathy for others, and establish positive relationships and make responsible decisions. So CASEL is the Collaborative for Academic, Social, and Emotional Learning, and this is the gold standard for social emotional learning for schools across the country. So not only Catch My Breath, but our whole Catch Global Foundation references CASEL through all of our programming. Within Catch My Breath, the 5 competencies that are covered are self-awareness, self-management, relationship skills, responsible decision-making, and social awareness. So Catch My Breath is available through 5th through 12th grade. It can be implemented in 1 grade or in all grades as they all stand alone. Consists of 4 lessons that each take between 35 and 40 minutes. We do recommend that each school implement the lessons 1 week apart for 4 weeks, but that can be varied depending upon the school. And then there's a combination of teacher presentations and peer facilitated small group discussions and projects. And we're going to go over some of the details. So one of the main things about our program that really is the success of our program is the peer-led discussion groups. So we offer an opportunity to lead the conversation in the classroom regarding vaping. So we have a peer facilitator guide where peers are chosen, and in each of the lessons, the teacher facilitates part of the lesson, and then the students break out into their peer facilitated groups, and then the students lead the rest of the session within their own groups. So we have several different educational strategies that are through our program as well. Again, with the central pillar of the Catch My Breath is that peer-led discussion groups. And then there's other strategies that are listed as well regarding rigorous Bloom's taxonomy, guided notes, check for understanding, criteria for success, and then also scaffolding. It can be taught in a variety of different subjects. So whether it's science, health, physical education, advisory, we have homeroom, we have schools wanting to implement it anywhere just so that the students can get this information. And this is just a testimonial from one of our lead teachers in Massachusetts, Harriet Sullivan, who has implemented the program now for 3 years. And here's a testimony from a high schooler in Illinois who went through our class. He was an e-cigarette user, but after going through the program, he chose to quit. And here are some testimonials from some middle school students across the country, and I apologize for that one being blurred out. I haven't fixed that yet. And then also in the 5th and 6th grade Catch My Breath curriculum, students are asked to create warning labels to address the dangers of vaping, and here are some examples from youth located in Illinois. We also have posters that are available for purchase or download. We're actually running a sale now too, so if you can buy a set of 12 of either one of those and then get a set free. The important thing to note is that the posters were created in-house, but we did get information from focus groups from peers across the youth-led groups across the country to see which ones would work best within their schools and amongst their peers. So feel free to purchase those online or download them and print them out. We also offer evaluation. The main evaluation that we have, we don't do the evaluation on our end, so it's downloadable for each school or individual to use, is the pre and post surveys of the program. We also have some check for understanding, so after each of our lessons, it's 5 short questions for teachers to provide their students with to see if they understood the information, and then of course our teacher feedback survey. We also have a plethora of resources on our parent communication side, because we know parents are an important asset when discussing risk behaviors like vaping. So we have a video, we have a PowerPoint, and that PowerPoint's actually made into a video. So it's a click and play, and all of our parent resources are in English and Spanish. And then we have a separate educational tab online as well for our teachers with additional resources. And we're going to talk more about the service learning project tomorrow, so I'm just going to hold that aside in regards to time. And then we do have a plethora of resources into health and physical education, which is part of our response to COVID-19. So there's more information on that, or you can contact Shana, who's also on the call. We also have launched Restart Smart Training online platform. So for more information, you can contact Shana in regards to that. We have on the Can Catch My Breath be implemented in a distance learning setting? Yes, it can. And on our main site, we do have information on how to be able to do that. We also have created our 6th grade lesson. We've created a video. So it is a click and play either for teachers to use, or it can be sent out to students. And we have created lesson plans with worksheets for 6th graders. This can be purchased in advance for schools to use. And if you're interested in that, please contact us. So let's take a quick dive into the lesson plans and what our program looks like. And I know I have just a few minutes left. So we have lesson plans that depict each of this. One of the things the teachers really like about our program is that we have the lesson plan already made out for them. Or in 2019, we also have these educator guides, because Catch Global Foundation, we formed a partnership with Discovery Education and CVS Health Foundation, and we're revamping all of our new and giving it beautiful design of our program. So you may see a lesson plan or educator guide. The 2 lessons that are updated right now are 5th and 6th. All of our lessons have scripted presentations that are on Google Slides, but can be downloaded as a PowerPoint. These are updated frequently, so as data changes, so just make sure if you download it, that you download it every time you present. Here's just some examples of worksheets that students have. This is great for distance learning or in class, as they can be either printed out or sent via email, or however their system through their school's portal system. And then taking a look at some middle school and curriculum. So 5th through 8th grade, the 4 sessions of elementary and middle school really focus on building the students' overall knowledge and understanding of e-cigarettes. What's really in the vapor? They practice those refusal skills and exit strategies that I talked about. They gain an understanding of social pressure to try e-cigarettes, and learn about some of the marketing tactics of the tobacco industry. That's where they create those anti-e-cigarette marketing campaigns. And then they wrap up all 4 lessons with making a statement regarding their personal choice about vaping. If we take a look at 9 through 12, it really changes the scope of work that we have for high school based on feedback from teachers and students alike last year. They focus on building the students' overall knowledge and understanding of e-cigarettes, because we know that that's a key component that still needs to happen. What's really in the vapor, the misconceptions around e-cigarettes, and reinforce the health and social consequences when using e-cigarettes. We go over the laws and regulations in place to protect youth, and especially taking a look at it in regards to e-cigarettes and tobacco products, and then provide them with an opportunity to take action on improving e-cigarette regulations and policies that affect them. Just a snapshot of our PE supplement that was developed, and thanks to our partner Shana that's on the call as well. All of our activities, it can be done in conjunction with the lesson plan. So if you offer week 1 for the lesson plan in the core program, activities 1, 2, and 3 coincide with week 1. Week 2, activities 4, 5, and 6, and the like. This is available for all grades, 5 through 12, because whether you're doing a push-up, doesn't matter if you're a 5th grader, 12th grader, or someone my age. They're all the same. And then through our partnership with Discovery Education, they have developed STEM and Humanities for 5th grade. We're doing some updates for middle school, which will be released in December. So we'll have an updated middle school core curriculum, and then the STEM and Humanities for that will be released at the same time. Here for STEM students, they talk about what parts of the brain and body are affected by e-cigarettes, what harmful and toxic chemicals can be found in e-cigarettes. And then in Humanities, they really talk about history and legal systems. And this is how you enroll in Catch My Breath. You can go to catchmybreath.org. Click on that enroll to create your account. Once you have created your account, you hit the let's go button. If you're getting an error, one of the things that you do need to complete are just 3 short questions in regards to when do you plan on implementing, how many students do you plan on reaching. This is just information and data we collect for our funders. Once you've done that, you have complete access to the Catch My Breath program. We do have an opportunity based on teacher feedback for them to complete a short quiz and get a certificate so they could turn it in for CEUs if that's something that their school district offers. And that's it.
That was wonderful, Shana. Thank you, and Shana. Marcella, that is some great information. I think now everyone should have a pretty good idea of how serious vaping and e-cigarettes are as a threat to our children. You have some good ideas on how you might approach these conversations with your kids, and you have a basic understanding of Catch My Breath, which is a great program that you could encourage your schools to check into or work with them on ways that they could implement Catch My Breath. I'm going to share my screen real quick. We have
sharing my screen.
Yeah, just a couple of quick slides, and then we'll close out the day. Just some information when we will share these resources with you. Excuse me. The Michael and Susan Dell Center for Healthy Living has been doing some data analysis around teen vaping in Texas, so we will share the information that they've put together on that. Also, there is another group here in Texas that approaches this from the youth perspective called Students, Adults, Youth Working Hard Against Tobacco. Say what? So they have provided me some sheets, tip sheets, and resources that we will share with you as well as the contact information if you want to get a youth program, specifically youth program in, excuse me, implemented in your school. We have a set of webinars that are archived, and this one will be joining those. So that link will be provided to you. And then if you want to see part 2, where we will have some youth ambassadors on and probably answer any questions that you might have from today or tomorrow, just go to actionforhealthykids.org/events, and you can register for the webinar for tomorrow at the same time. And then save the date. We are doing our annual summit virtually this year. It will be November 16th and 17th, half a days, noon to 5:30 on Monday the 16th and 8:30 to 1:30 on the 17th. We'll be exploring the new normal with some public health officials and school administrators, and then having districts share how they have been working with the different health officials on how to reopen, how to deal with children remotely and keep everyone safe. Also, roles of shacks, PE and social emotional learning, and then food access, and then of course a legislative update. We have a session coming up which will probably be very interesting this year. So again, I'm Michelle Smith. I want to thank Marcella and Shana and Patricia for joining us. You'll be hearing more from them tomorrow. This is a topic that I know all parents are concerned about. Even if your kids are not in school right now, they're still exposed to the vaping issues. And I think it's time that we make this a serious effort against e-cigarettes and vaping. So thank you, ladies, and we will rejoin tomorrow. So I can, there we go.